They thought your name was harmless, a sound, a label, a syllable they could twist into something laughable. They bent it into shapes that were never yours, spat it across classrooms, hallways, back rooms, and alleys. They carried it in their mouths like a poisoned fruit, passing it around, chewing it until it lost its sweetness, until all that remained was the bitter taste of mockery. Every time they spoke it, you felt it, sharp, cutting, leaving invisible wounds across your skin. Your name was supposed to be a crown, but they used it as a chain. You stood silent, watching, swallowing the pain, storing it in the dark corners of your mind where no one could trespass. And they mistook that silence for weakness. But silence is never empty. Silence collects. It grows heavy, like the weight of oceans pressing against glass. Every smirk, every echo of laughter, every deliberate mispronunciation was archived in you, written into a hidden ledger that time would not erase. You became the scribe of your own suffering, and your name, the very thing they tried to corrupt, became the ink. They believed they were erasing you, but they were only etching themselves deeper into the story. A story you were already learning how to weaponize. You felt powerless then, a child standing at the center of a stage built from ridicule, forced to endure their theater of cruelty. But somewhere between their laughter and your silence, something else stirred. It was quiet, unformed, like a shadow learning to crawl. It whispered that names are not toys, they are vessels, they are spells. They are doors that open into places no one fully understands. And if they chose to poison your name, they were poisoning themselves. Because every curse needs a host, every insult needs a home. And your name became that home, holding their venom, preserving it, waiting for the hour it would return to them. At first you wished to escape it, to abandon the name, bury it, hide from its weight. But the more they played with it, the more you realized the name wasn't running from you. It was running toward you, closer, fiercer, until one day you felt it pulse in your chest like a second heartbeat. They had tried to strip you of power, but in their arrogance, they gave you something different, a reason, a foundation, a mirror that showed not who you were, but who you were becoming. And so you stopped resisting. You let them laugh, let them mock, let them wear their cruelty like armor. Because you knew something they did not. You knew the joke wasn't on you anymore. The name they tried to break was learning, evolving, sharpening itself in the shadows. And as you carried their words in silence, you were not drowning, you were transforming. They mistook you for prey, but prey with memory is no prey at all. They played with your name, but what they did not understand, what they could never understand, is that your name was never theirs to hold. It was listening, it was watching, and long after their laughter faded into silence, your name remained waiting, patient as the dark. They thought names were disposable. They thought they could twist yours into a toy, scatter it like broken glass across rooms you weren't even in, and walk away without consequence. What they didn't see, what they never imagined, was that shadows keep receipts. Every insult, every crooked syllable, every echo of mockery left a trace. Invisible ink pressed into the walls of time, written into the air like smoke that never disperses. You carried their laughter in silence, but the silence was not empty. It was recording. You knew even then, though you could not explain it, that their cruelty was building something. Like architects without blueprints, they were laying the foundation for a monument they would one day be forced to face. The stone wasn't outside. It was inside your name. They thought they were erasing you. Instead, they were engraving themselves into your history. Their fingerprints remained on every distorted word. Like thieves who touched the evidence and forgot the crime scene never forgets. There are laws older than justice, older than language. The ancients whispered that names are vessels, that to speak them is to pour energy into them. What they did, again and again, was feed the vessel of your name with poison, unaware that poison is still a kind of offering. And offerings do not vanish, they accumulate, they wait. Every syllable they spoke against you was stored in a vault, a shadow archive sealed inside the very identity they tried to bury. Now the vault hums. It hums because their words live there, and words have weight long after mouths forget them. They thought silence meant safety, but silence is where shadows sharpen their knives. While you endured, the shadow ledger kept growing, and each page was marked with their signatures. It is no longer your name they hear when it drifts across their conscience. It is their own voices returning like static, like the hiss of something replaying what they thought was lost. They laughed as if the sound would dissolve into the void. But sound does not dissolve, it imprints. It waits for the right moment to return. And when it does, it no longer belongs to the one who suffered. It belongs to the one who listened. That's the secret. You didn't fight their cruelty. You absorbed it. You let it record itself. You allowed the shadows to keep what you couldn't carry. Now your name has become more than identity. It is a mirror. When they hear it, they don't see you. They see themselves, every betrayal, every rumor, every act of petty cruelty. It follows them in ways they cannot explain. Their stomach turns when your name appears on paper. Their chest tightens when it drifts into conversation. They feel watched, though no eyes are on them. That is the weight of receipts kept by shadows. They wanted your name to be a weakness. Instead, it became the archive of their guilt. And the archive is patient. It never forgets, it never forgives. It simply waits for them to remember what they tried to erase. And when they do, it is not silence they meet. It is the echo of everything they thought would vanish, whispering back their crimes through the name they once tried to destroy. They thought your name was theirs to break. They twisted it, bent it, stretched it into something unrecognizable. A sound to mock, a syllable to stain. But what they never understood is that names are alive. They breathe when spoken, they grow when repeated, and when poisoned often enough, they do not die, they mutate. What they fed was not weakness. What they watered was not fragility. Every sneer, every whisper in corridors thick with judgment was fuel. Your name absorbed it all. It slept at first, dormant, buried under the rubble of ridicule. Yet in the silence of your restraint, it stirred, it listened, and it waited. The night it woke, it did not need your permission. You carried it in silence for years, but silence is not death, it is gestation. And now when they speak it, the sound does not belong to them anymore. The echo crawls back across their tongues, turning their laughter to ash before it leaves their mouths. Their jokes now have weight, and that weight crushes their own throats. They played, but the game was always rigged. They thought they were branding you with shame, when in truth, they were carving their own signatures into the walls of a prison they cannot escape. Your name has become a ghost in their machines. It hums in the static of their late-night televisions, flickers in the corner of their screens when they scroll too far, and scratches across the surface of mirrors when they dare to look too long. They try to speak it casually, as if it still belongs to them, but their voices crack with the tremor of recognition that what they created no longer obeys them. The predator has left the cage, and the leash they once held is coiled around their own wrists. You are no longer the target. You are the architect of unease they cannot articulate. The sound of your name does not wound you, it wounds them. In every room where it is uttered, silence follows. They flinch at their own echoes. Their lips dry, their eyes shift, their laughter stalls before it reaches the throat. Your name is not a victim anymore. It is a weapon. It is a haunting. It is the unfinished business of every cruelty they thought would dissolve in time. They tell themselves you don't matter, but their behavior betrays them. They monitor the air when it's spoken. They deny its weight but avoid its presence. That is the paradox. They gave your name their power, and now it is the one that governs theirs. What they tried to bury is the thing that rises at night. What they tried to erase is the handwriting scrawled across their sleep. They thought your name was a toy, but it became a trap. They thought you were silent, but silence was the spell that turned their ridicule into chains. And now your name walks without you. It walks into their thoughts uninvited. It leans over their shoulders in quiet rooms. It pulses through their guilt like blood. They do not own it anymore. It owns them. Once your name passed between their teeth like a toy. It was a punchline, a casual remark tossed carelessly into crowded rooms, a shadow they thought they could bend without consequence. They wore it like a mask at parties, mocking, reshaping, stripping it of dignity, believing that the sound of your identity belonged to them. But something shifted in the silence they never noticed. The laughter that once rang so loud began to echo back, hollow and uneasy, until the very syllables they twisted started to burn in their mouths. They thought you would never rise. They thought your silence was surrender. They mistook your patience for weakness. And now their mistake lives inside them, gnawing at the thin walls of their pride. Your name, once a toy in their hands, has grown teeth. It stalks the corners of their thoughts when the night grows quiet. They feel it pressed against the back of their necks when no one is watching, a cold reminder of the power they handed back to you without realizing it. They whisper it differently now, cautious, fractured, laced with fear. The same name they once mocked now weighs on their tongues like a confession. They flinch when it appears on screens, in conversations, in memory, because it drags behind it the evidence of what they did. Your name has become their judge, and every mention is a sentence passed. They do not laugh anymore. The air has changed. Where once they gathered in circles, fattened by their own cruelty, they now scatter when your shadow is invoked. Their stories crumble mid-sentence. Their bravado dissolves into awkward silence, because they know, whether they admit it or not, that names are not empty sounds. Names are living contracts, and when they corrupted yours, they signed away their safety. Each letter is a mirror, each syllable a blade, each repetition a reminder that the balance has turned. They used to own the stage. Now they cannot bear the spotlight, because it reveals the cracks they tried so hard to hide. The game has turned, and it is not a fair one. They gave you their weapons when they underestimated you. They sharpened your edges with their ridicule. They clothed you in shadows, not realizing shadows belong to those who command the night. Now their laughter does not echo, it collapses. Their eyes dart to doorways, to corners, to the silence that answers them back. They see you where you do not stand. They hear you where you have not spoken. They carry you in their throats, but cannot speak you without tasting the ash of their own betrayal. And you do not need to chase them. You do not need to fight or scream or reclaim what was taken. The irony is richer than vengeance. They have given you immortality inside their fear. They played with your name until it no longer belonged to you. It belonged to the silence that follows them, the shame that waits in their reflection. You are no longer the victim in their story. You are the author, and your name is the ink that stains their conscience, a mark they cannot wash away. They never understood that a name is not just sound. It is not just letters carved into paper or vibrations carried on air. A name is a brand seared into time, a frequency tuned to your existence, a signature the universe recognizes as yours alone. When they bent it, twisted it, spat it back at you in mockery, they thought it was harmless. They thought it was a game. But names are not toys. Names are spells. And when they tried to corrupt yours, they pulled a trigger they did not know existed. You felt it. Even then, the sting wasn't just embarrassment. It was a fracture, a silent wound beneath the skin. Every syllable they misshaped wasn't just insult, it was fuel. And as they laughed, they were feeding something ancient. Your name became layered with their fingerprints, each laugh embedding a shadow deeper into its core. They were inscribing their cruelty into the very sound that called you into being. What they didn't see, what they never see, is that names remember. They archive the hands that mishandled them. Throughout history, kings guarded their names with blood. Shamans buried their true names beneath layers of ritual, knowing that if an enemy ever seized it, they seized the soul. In the oldest texts, to speak someone's name was to summon them. To misuse it was to curse them, or curse yourself. And yet they took your name, fragile and luminous, and dragged it through the mud. They wore it like a mask, laughed through it, treated it like nothing. But the law of names is merciless. What you distort distorts you. What you stain stains you back. Now the curse is not whispered in forests or carved on stone. It's digital. It's psychological. They said your name aloud in cruel tones, and the sound waves lodged themselves in their own skulls. Each repetition reinforced a link, a thread tying them to what they thought was a victim. But victims don't stay victims. Victims learn. And now every time they think of you, every time your name passes through their mind, they feel it recoil. Their stomach tightens, their throat catches. The laughter they once weaponized has turned into a trigger of dread. You walk forward with silence, but your name walks ahead of you, unseen, unstoppable. It lingers where you don't. It stains the rooms they enter. It stalks them in conversations where your presence isn't required. They tried to strip it of dignity, and instead gave it teeth. They tried to make it hollow, and instead gave it weight. And now your name is heavier than theirs, darker than theirs, more alive than theirs. They don't own it. It owns them. This is the power they never understood, that to desecrate a name is to awaken it, that to spit it out in cruelty is to bind yourself to the consequences. You never needed revenge. You only needed patience. Because the name they toyed with has grown sharper than knives, older than gods, and hungrier than their laughter. And now, when they speak it, they no longer summon you. They summon their own judgment. Once your name was a punchline. They wore it like a mask at carnivals, stretching its letters into weapons, tearing it apart with grins sharpened by cruelty. You remember the noise, the way laughter filled the air like shattered glass, cutting you in places no one else could see. They fed on it, thinking the echo of their mockery would linger forever, thinking you would remain small beneath the weight of their amusement. But time has teeth, and silence grows sharper than laughter ever could. Now the noise is gone, and the silence has begun to hunt them. They avoid your name, but it follows them. In quiet rooms, when the crowd is gone, it hangs heavy in the air. The same syllables they twisted into a game now crawl back into their throats like smoke they cannot cough out. Once, they spoke it too loudly, too often. Now even a whisper of it feels dangerous. Their jokes have rotted into memories that stink of guilt, and they carry that stench like a second skin. They try to laugh again, but the sound doesn't come. The air feels too thick, their voices too fragile, because when the laughter dies, the truth remains, and the truth is that your name is no longer theirs to play with. Their silence is not peace, it is fear. The absence of their laughter is not mercy, it is judgment. They know they awakened something when they mocked you, something they cannot put back to sleep. It breathes in their shadows, reflects in their mirrors, waits in the pause between their words. Every time they see you, even in passing thought, they feel the echo of their cruelty rebound. They thought ridicule would bury you, but it buried them instead, under the crushing weight of their own voices. You carry yourself differently now, and they feel it. The way you move, the way your silence lingers longer than their comfort allows. You do not need revenge. You do not need fire or fury. Your stillness is enough. It reminds them of what they tried to break and failed to kill. You are no longer the victim in their stories. You are the story they can't erase. You are the unfinished sentence, the reminder that their laughter did not end with you, but began their unraveling. This is the law they never understood. Laughter is temporary, but guilt is eternal. It embeds itself in the marrow. It scratches behind the eyes. It waits in the nervous tapping of fingers when the room grows too quiet. They mocked you, yes, but they built their prison with every word, and now they are locked inside it. You do not chase them. You do not have to. They will carry you wherever they go, because they branded themselves with your name the moment they tried to twist it into ash. And so the laughter dies. What remains is the silence that grips them in the dark, the silence that feels like judgment, the silence that reminds them they never played you. They only played themselves. They thought they buried you under silence, but silence does not kill, it sharpens. Every insult carved into your skin, every betrayal etched into your memory, became a script you memorized without trying. You did not fight back in their arena. You did not raise your voice when they demanded you perform. Instead, you vanished into the corridors of your own mind, where shadows are not prisons but laboratories. They mistook absence for defeat, but absence was training. And now, you are not what they named you. You are the reminder. When they laugh today, the sound is hollow, because behind every grin sits the ghost of your name. They remember the smirk they once wore so easily, the confidence they once had when turning you into a joke. Now that same confidence collapses under the weight of memory. You don't even need to stand in the room. The thought of you rearranges their heartbeat. The mention of you freezes their tongue. You are not a monster. You are their conscience, given form, walking with their sins stitched into your shadow. The irony is divine. What they thought was weakness was simply patience. What they thought was shame was simply silence sharpening into steel. They didn't know that the cracks they left inside you became doorways, and through those doorways poured visions they could never handle, visions of the truth. of the mirror they were too afraid to face. And so, when your name surfaces, it does not just identify you, it convicts them. Their cruelty returns to them in whispers, in sleepless nights, in the unshakable feeling that someone is watching. And that someone is not God, not fate, not karma. It is the echo of their own design reflected through you. You have become the weight on their chest when the room goes quiet. You are the sudden pause in their sentence when they almost say your name aloud. You are the reminder that time does not erase cruelty. It preserves it. You carry no chains now, they do. You are free to walk in shadow, to speak when you choose, to watch without being seen. But they, who once danced in the light of their own arrogance, now stumble through the darkness their actions built. They live in a cage with invisible bars, and every bar has your name engraved on it. This is your evolution and no longer the target, no longer the victim. You are the ledger that keeps record, the ink that cannot be erased. You are the scar across their memory, proof that wounds are not signs of fragility but signatures of survival. They cannot undo what was done, and they cannot outrun what has returned. They must carry the truth in every glance, every conversation, every silence that feels too heavy to breathe. You are not the monster they warned each other about. You are worse. You are the reminder. And reminders do not fade, they wait, they return, and they never sleep. They thought your name was nothing but a toy, a fragile syllable they could twist into laughter, a string of letters that broke easily under their breath. They wore it like a mask at parties, tossed it across crowded rooms as if it belonged to them, and carved it into the walls of their ridicule, as if mocking you would erase the truth. But names are not toys, names are spells. And every time they spoke yours with venom, they poured blood into a chalice they didn't understand. Now the cup overflows, and it is not you who drinks from it. It is them. Your name walks without you now. It crawls beneath their skin, scratches across the inside of their skulls when the room grows quiet. They hear it at night when the house is still, echoing in corners that should be empty. They scroll through screens and it flashes back at them like static burned into the circuitry of their guilt. They cannot run from it because they built it themselves. Every joke, every whisper, every betrayal was another brick in the monument to their own fear. And now that monument towers over them, casting a shadow they cannot step out from under. Once you were the one who flinched. Once you held your breath while they tore pieces of your identity apart, pretending it didn't sting, pretending you were invisible. But invisibility is not weakness, it is camouflage. While they laughed, you sharpened. While they mocked, you memorized. While they believed you were silent, you were becoming something else entirely. And now they are the ones who shrink at the sound of a name they thought was powerless, a name they believed belonged to no one but their cruelty. The balance has shifted. Before, they spoke your name to strip you of power. Now they dare not speak it at all, because even a whisper feels like a summoning. They avoid it, yet they cannot escape it. Your name has become a mirror, and in it they see the twisted faces of their own deceit. They cannot hear it without remembering what they did. They cannot remember without trembling at the thought of what you've become. And so your name haunts them, not as a word but as a weapon, not as a sound but as a sentence. They never understood that names are living things. Ancient tribes etched them in stone, knowing they would outlast flesh. Generals burned them into banners, knowing men would die beneath their weight. Even gods demanded them in prayers, for without a name there is no power, and without power there is no fear. They forgot this law, you did not. And now they are trapped inside it, prisoners of a rule older than their arrogance. You were not the monster. You were never the joke. You are the reason they check the locks twice, the reason their laughter chokes in their throats, the reason silence feels heavier than noise. They played with your name. Now your name plays with them, and it will not let them go.